The homeless black boy gave his only piece of bread to a man he thought was just another stranger. What he didn't know was that this man was a billionaire, quietly searching for someone worthy to inherit his empire. Now pause and let that sink in. A boy who had nothing, no roof, no bed, no family to hold him when the nights turned cold, still chose to give away the only meal he had. While men with mansions guard their gold, and men in power protect only themselves, this child gave. And in that moment, the universe seemed to stop, because destiny was about to be rewritten. The boy was just 10 years old. His clothes were torn. His shoes were no more than scraps of leather holding on by threads. His small hands were dirty, his hair uncombed, his face shadowed by hunger, yet his eyes carried a quiet fire. He had learned too early that life doesn't give kindness often, but still he chose to live with kindness in his heart. That evening, he stood by the corner of a busy street. The rich walked past him as if he didn't exist. Expensive cars roared by, their tinted windows hiding eyes that refused to see. Some men mocked him. Others threw coins like he was an animal in a cage. And yet the boy never begged with anger. He only whispered, "Please, sir, bread." Then came the man. A tall figure in a dark coat, his hair streaked with silver, his gaze hidden behind weary eyes. No one noticed him, because he walked with the quiet of someone who did not want to be seen. But this man was no ordinary stranger. He was 60 years old, a billionaire who owned towers of glass that touched the sky, fleets of cars that shone like jewels, and banks that moved nations. He had wealth beyond measure, yet he was alone. His wife gone, his son gone, his legacy crumbling. And so in secret he wandered the streets, not for pity, not for escape, but for one reason, to find a soul pure enough, selfless enough, strong enough, to inherit not just his fortune, but his name. When he passed the boy, their eyes met for only a second. The billionaire didn't ask for food. He didn't even stop. But the boy, this little one who had nothing, pulled out the dry, hard piece of bread he had saved for the night. He stepped forward with shaking hands and said, "You look hungry, sir. Please, take this." Silence. The kind of silence that drowns out the city itself. The billionaire froze. In all his years, he had been offered gold, power, connections, even false smiles. Yet no one had ever offered him something so small, yet so infinite. Bread. The last piece this child had. For the first time in years. The old man's eyes watered. He took the bread, not because he needed it, but because in that single act, he had seen more humanity than in the halls of his empire. And as he bit into it, the boy smiled, even as his own stomach growled. What neither of them knew in that instant was that the world was about to change. The boy's kindness would shake empires. His choice would echo in boardrooms, in mansions, in headlines across the globe, because the billionaire had finally found what he was looking for. The heir? The billionaire held the stale bread in his hand. But what he was really holding was the key to a legacy he thought he had lost forever. The boy, only 10 years old, didn't linger for praise. He didn't expect thanks. He simply stepped back, his small frame swallowed by the crowd, as if giving away his only meal was nothing extraordinary. And that was what made it extraordinary. The billionaire watched him, curiosity burning in his chest. Who was this child? Where did he come from? Why would he give the only thing he had to a man who looked richer than him? He followed quietly. The boy walked barefoot down the broken pavement, clutching an old backpack that carried nothing but scraps, a broken toy car, a tattered notebook, and a photo so faded it was nearly unrecognizable. The billionaire noticed how strangers brushed past him without care, some sneering, some ignoring, some tossing words sharper than knives, but the boy kept moving. No anger, no bitterness, only silence and resilience. The old man felt his chest tighten. He remembered his own son, once full of life, now gone. The boy's every step reminded him of what he had lost. Innocence, courage, selflessness. Soon the boy reached his home, an abandoned warehouse at the edge of the city. The billionaire stopped at the doorway. He expected anger, hopelessness, despair, but what he saw left him shaken to his core. Inside, the boy knelt down beside two even smaller children, orphans, no older than 6 or 7. They were shivering, weak, clutching each other for warmth. And without hesitation, the boy broke the remaining crumbs of bread from his pocket and placed them into their hands. "Eat," he whispered. "I'll be fine." The billionaire felt his throat tighten. This boy gave to me, a stranger, and still saved some for others who have even less. Tears threatened his eyes, but he swallowed them back. He had learned long ago to bury emotion behind stone. Yet here, in the shadows of a crumbling warehouse, a homeless child had just reminded him of a truth more powerful than any empire. Wealth isn't measured by what you keep. It's measured by what you give. But the billionaire's thoughts didn't end there. He realized something darker. This world would devour a boy like this. Men of greed would crush him. The streets would harden him. Unless someone stepped in. Unless someone gave him more than coins. Unless someone gave him a chance. The billionaire clenched his fist. For decades, he had turned men into millionaires, built dynasties, destroyed rivals. But tonight, he found someone he could raise not into wealth, but into greatness. He whispered to himself, "This boy, he could be my son." And for the first time in years, hope lit his weary eyes. But the question still remained. How could he reveal himself? How could he approach without scaring the child? How could he test the purity of this boy's heart once more? To be certain this was no act, no accident, but true character, the billionaire stepped back into the shadows, a silent decision already forming in his mind. The world thought he was untouchable, unreachable, too powerful to care. But here he was, an old man ready to risk everything. For a boy who had nothing, the story was just beginning, and the boy had no idea that his life was about to be rewritten in ways no one could have ever imagined. The boy awoke the next morning to the sound of footsteps. He rubbed his tired eyes, expecting another officer telling him to move along, or a cruel stranger ready with insults. But when he looked up, he saw a man, dressed not in rags, not in pity, but in a tailored suit that whispered power. It was the billionaire. He didn't arrive with cameras. He didn't arrive with guards. He stood there, holding nothing but a small paper bag. The boy hesitated, his thin body tense, ready to run if needed. But then the man knelt and offered him the bag. Inside was food, fresh bread, fruit, a sandwich still warm. The boy froze. He had never seen someone like this, a man of wealth kneel to someone like him. "You gave me your only meal," the billionaire said softly, his voice carrying the weight of something greater than gratitude. "Now I give this to you." The boy reached out carefully, as if afraid the gift might vanish. But when he took a bite, tears welled in his eyes. Not because of the taste, but because someone had finally seen him. But the moment was not over. The billionaire's gaze shifted to the two smaller children sleeping nearby, their faces gaunt with hunger. He stepped closer, covering them with his own coat. Then, without hesitation, he spoke the words that froze the boy in place. "Come with me, all of you. From this day forward, you will never go hungry again." The boy's heart raced. He didn't understand. He looked at the man, searching for trickery, for cruelty. But all he saw was sincerity. Still, the billionaire wasn't done. He took a deep breath and revealed the truth. "I've been searching for an heir," he admitted, his voice trembling in a way it hadn't in decades. Not someone of blood. Not someone of greed. Someone of heart. Someone who understands what it means to give, even when you have nothing. "And you showed me that." The boy dropped the sandwich. His mind couldn't keep up. He was just a homeless child, nothing special. No family, no future. But this man, this giant of power, was saying he was worthy. The billionaire extended his hand. "Son, will you walk with me?" The boy stared at it. His lips trembled. He thought of the streets, of cold nights, of being invisible. He thought of his little friends, hungry and forgotten. And then he thought of the bread. How one act of kindness had changed everything. Slowly, he placed his small, calloused hand into the billionaire's. And at that moment, destiny shifted. The streets that had ignored him would now whisper his name. The city that had abandoned him would one day look up to him, because he was no longer just a boy. He was the chosen heir of a man who had everything but had lost the one thing money couldn't buy: a son. The billionaire pulled him close, his voice cracking for the first time in years. "You gave me back hope. Now, I will give you the world." And as the sun rose, pouring golden light across the broken warehouse, 3 children who once had nothing walked out into a future that was no longer dark. Because a homeless boy had given his last piece of bread, and in doing so, gained an empire.